Welcome to the East Forest Park Branch Library of the Springfield City Library in Springfield, Massachusetts. Thank you for coming. I'm going to read 9 poems from my forthcoming chapbook, Sweet Blisters, and then 2 poems that are not in the manuscript. And after that, we'll have an open mic for people who want to read their own writing or a favorite poem. This first poem was published in Sinister Wisdom 117. It's in form of 8 couplets. Aging female poet attends writing retreat. After Margaret Atwood's aging female poet sits on the balcony. The late autumn trees lose their last leaves fast to the strong gust of wind this first writing day. They fly like little yellow birds from the branches off the mountain to another land for forgotten things. The aging female poet gazes out the window at the landscape and writes her last poems, perhaps, as light blue hills hold the distance down and the sun sets. While her blood flows quick, she will sing of trees and birds, and as she ages, what will she dream of? When her sight fades with the afternoon light, will she write from memory or fear? Crisp apples will trigger her best poems, and she will hear what she can of the gales and the spirits of the night. Her childhood haunts will flicker past, and the deep scent of pine trees will linger. This next poem was inspired by the view of my backyard out my kitchen window. This view is often inspiration for poems for me. The poem is called Bird Watching. His bright blue and white visage, stark against the green foliage, with that punk blue hairstyle, a big white belly, black streaks on his face, geometric markings on his wings and tail. He is conceited and proud. The bird feeder is meant only for him, and he cocks his head jauntily to one side as he dominates the bird bath. He is one of the few birds I can identify, and I love his joie de vivre. This next poem is a short one, a humorous poem. I wrote it in 2019, and I've revised it a couple times. The origin of war. Said the cat, you itch me with your bites in my flesh. Yours is a system of jump and crawl. There is you, the catapult, and there is you, the stone. You love nestling in my fur, your deep longing like the calling of that first scent, bee to flower. Said the flea, I have seen you, furry snob, in that business in your litter box. It's known, little know-it-all. You run the house from the couch. You could be a princess. You scratch at me like a desperado or an addict. You are no flower, and I am no bee. This next poem is written about a job I had when I was 14. I wrote the first version when I was in college, and I was going through my papers, and I found it and thought it was worthwhile to revise. Working in the Connecticut tobacco fields. Early morning, the clay soil is damp from the morning dew. The wide tobacco leaves flap against my leg as I walk down the row, carrying my string, tying the plants to the wire above them. My fingers are stiff, fumbling with loose string, moving of its own accord. The nicotine on the sticky leaves pulls the hairs on my hand, turning them black. Bent bodies across the field work with flowing motion up and down. Overhead, netting undulates in the morning breeze. The string is wet, slices my hand, opening cuts that have scabbed and bled over and over. Tobacco is my summer job, and I dream all day of playing tennis at Wimbledon. This next poem is a list poem. It was inspired by a woman named Say Shonigan. She wrote the Pillow Book. She's an 11th century Japanese noblewoman, and the Pillow Book has her observations and musings on the imperial court at the time. And it contains a lot of list poems that are very humorous, so it inspired this one. Things that raise my blood pressure. Salty food, pedestrians who spit on my sidewalk, birds who poop on my car, the snowplow that adds hard-packed snow to the end of my driveway after I've shoveled it clear, neighbors who toss cigarette butts on my lawn, dust that collects on my floor, unexplained diarrhea, people who talk during a presentation, people who don't wipe down the machine after exercising, smokers in my airspace, pens that don't write, my car when it doesn't start, unsigned notes, medicine that makes my mouth dry, unexplained rashes, dirty fingernails on acquaintances, hairdressers who clip my ear with their scissors, toenail fungus, people who lose their glasses and other possessions constantly, people who lie, arguments over nothing, people with very thin arms, loud blasting music on a beautiful spring day, people who don't flush after using a public toilet, shopping carts left next to my car, relatives who never forget something regrettable I did, polka dot pants, bright orange lipstick. This next poem is a haiku, a Japanese form of poetry. It consists of a prose poem and a haiku. March sunrise at Patchwork Farm Retreat 2018. Black branches are lit in an orange-red stripe across the horizon. The dark blue clouds lift to reveal more pink and yellow in the widening ribbon. Sky lightens to a muted blue. White patches appear, openings for the sun to emerge. Orange sun breaks, too strong for my eyes. The birds are calling out. The light edges into my room, urging me to start a poem. Here you are, day says, awake at dawn, alive, write your joy. Only half a poem comes as my muse settles among the black limbs and the orange sky. I made a start and closed my eyes for repose. Birds sing poems from the orange-black horizon only I can hear. This is a poem in couplets, except for the last line, which is single. It's after a poem I read by a well-known poet. How it is, after Arthur Zay. How good breakfast tastes when you wake up famished. How the blood rushes through your veins after a 45-minute bike ride. How you want to melt into the floor when you make a social blunder. How satisfying it feels to hug a large friend. How scared you are when walking in the dark in a strange city. How much you miss your dead mother. How easy it is to ignore a homeless panhandler. How guilty you feel when canceling plans with a friend. How much your obesity bothers you. How you chew the same piece of gum for hours. How wonderful chocolate feels in your mouth. How much you come alive in the sunshine. How adult you felt after making your first pot of tea. how welcoming lotion feels on your dry feet, how invincible you are after drinking whiskey, how invisible you come to be as you age, how much fun it is to play with a 4-year-old, how the bartender ignores you after you've drank too much. Isn't it great to be alive? This is a short poem, and it came about by using a prompt where you were asked to use pronouns that you don't normally use. Most of my poems have I in them, so the previous poem had you, and this poem has the pronoun he, and it's about an old relationship. He. His penis has one long hair extending from it. He is very hairy everywhere like a bear, and he sheds on my bed. He is more experienced than me and is gentle. He says, I don't mind that you are with women too. He wants to marry and have no children. He is passive aggressive and has mommy issues. We never make it past the first year. This last poem has had many revisions. It started out as a poem about my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, and then I changed it and revised it to be a poem about both grandmothers, comparing and contrasting them. And then it ended up being a poem about both sets of grandparents. So the first column is grandmothers, it's in 2 columns, and the second column is grandfathers. It's called Poem for My Grandparents. Grandmothers are the tenderest flowers in the garden, but they lose their petals fast, and they are gone with the spring breezes, too late to realize how much their love lifts. My maternal grandmother was hardy lavender, fragrant and perky. She lived far away in California. Her visits were oases in a long drought of neglect and inattention. I wanted to live with her. My paternal grandmother was thistle, prickly, beautiful, and strong. She cooked delicious Saturday dinners and believed putting diapers on infants caused them to poop in their pants. She was born in Canada. Both grandmothers wanted me to get married and settle down. My soul was too wild for that life, and I knew I would mimic my parents' marriage and live unhappily. Grandfathers are rugged burlap bags and teachers of skullduggery. They fall asleep in stuffed chairs, watch sports and ignore everyone, pass on their sins to the 5th generation, yet grandmothers outlive them. My maternal grandfather died at 32 after fathering 7 children, my aunts and uncles and mother. He was a jaunty stockbroker dressed in suits in all the photos of him. I wish I had met him. My paternal grandfather smoked and gambled, liked to sit outside in his undershirt, taught us to play cards and laugh at troubles, couldn't tell my sister from me, ate the turkey drumstick on Thanksgiving, and died in his 70s from diabetes. I became a drunk like one grandfather and a diabetic like the other. I have their natures for trouble and may live longer than both. They died too young. I wish I could go back. That concludes the poems from my chapbook, and now I'm going to read a poem that won 3rd place in the 2019 Palm Beach Poetry Festival Tech Effect Ekphrastic Poetry Contest. Ekphrastic means a poem is written in response to a piece of art, and this is a villanelle, which has a specific format of rhyme and repeating lines. The piece of art was a photograph of a green dress that looked to me like a bridesmaid's dress. It's called Last Minute Temptation. No bride's gown, it's on the maid of honor. His sweetheart advanced down the row, but the strapless dress made a better offer. Up the aisle came the green Madonna. His eyes strayed, but he did not show. He saw not the bride's gown, but the maid of honor. Her dress glowed as she came nearer. Who would look at his bride's trousseau when the strapless dress was a better offer? What was wiser, he did ponder, prim and proper, or a quick rendezvous? Leave bride's gown for the maid of honor? His fantasy was soon a goner. Where would they go if the strapless dress made a better offer? A lasting union he could not squander. His place as her beau he really did know. His love wore the bride's gown, not the maid of honor. He knew the strapless dress wasn't a better offer. And this last poem is still in progress. It's in couplets. The first line of each couplet is the voice that is speaking about the crickets in August, through August and October when they mate with the cooler weather. The second voice is a musing in response to the crickets. August. I know August by its chirping crickets. I know less in my old years than when I was 15. I knew everything. Males calling out for mates. I never mated for life. I mow my lawn and they hop to safety. If I had a husband, he would mow the lawn. I pick up the garbage can lid. I don't want the responsibility of a house anymore. And they skitter away. I hibernate all winter in my warm bed. Autumn is coming and the crickets know I need to rise again, not sleep all the time. They exist from spring to fall. Even in spring I sleep until noon, and their larvae live over the winter. I grow fat over the winter. Cool nights and mornings with warm days. I feel the fading of summer. Give us September and the impending arrival. Soon I will be shoveling snow. Of cold weather with less chirping, as winter's wind effaces summer's companionship. The crickets die. I am reminded of endings and no more beginnings. I live longer than a cricket. No new school year, nothing new at all. But I feel death calling to me in August. Why do I feel so abandoned? Thank you for listening. This concludes the reading part, and now we're going to open it for the open mic.